Yeah, baby. Welcome to the Pleasure Points podcast. I'm your host, James Rohr. Most people call me Jim. I don't care, just so long as you call me. That was horrible. Anyway, thanks for being here. Today's episode is a big one. It's another continuation of our body dialogues, and we'll be talking about back pain today. So if you've never had back pain, be grateful that you've never had back pain. And if you have had it, you know how much it can suck. So we're going to be diving into some of the things that are all around all that. So as always, you can hit me up at Pleasure Points Podcast at Gmail. Hit me up on Instagram at James E. Rohr. Thank you guys for loving on the show, sharing these episodes, leaving reviews, subscribing. All of that helps and makes a huge difference. So without further ado, enjoy the show. Big episode today. We're talking about the back, spine, pain, discomfort, things that we wished were different. We're going to be taking a look at the back. And but before we get into that, we just got back not too long ago from taking Wyatt on his first camping trip. We went down to the Great Smokies. I'd never been there before. I'd heard awesome things about it, but honestly, I didn't really believe it because I'm a West Coast snob and believe that everything is better out there, you know, from the Rockies to the Sierras and all that. And so I was reluctantly eager, I suppose, to check out the Great Smokies. And it was awesome. So pretty. And the like ratio of black bears to the acreage that is in the park is something like 2 bears for every mile, something like that. And so we saw a bunch of black bears. Super cool. And the highlight of the trip, though, was, I mean, there were so many things, but we went to the visitor center, which was really well done. And Wyatt and Jen were talking to the ranger, you know, just kind of getting the lay of the land of, you know, where to go and whatever. And, Wyatt was asking him about foxes and bobcats and whatever. And as we left, we're making our way back to Vanchovy, and Wyatt says to me, he goes, "Dad, do you ever get that feeling like when you're listening to someone who's talking about something that they know a lot about and they get really excited about? Do you ever get that feeling in your body where it like sort of like butterflies, like it tingles because like you're excited because they're excited?" Now, Wyatt doesn't normally like talk like that. A lot of, you know, you could just spend like hours with the kid in the car and he might just read his book and like not talk at all. And so for him just to like volunteer that and to have such that body awareness, and oh my God, I got so excited. I was like, yes, of course, I love to learn. Like I'm always listening, and you know, I love school and all the things. And I just thought that was adorable. So let me know. Hit me up. Pleasure Points Podcast at Gmail or on Instagram at James E. Rohr. And let me know, do you get that tingly feeling also when you are listening to experts and people who get really excited about what they do? So I thought that was a really cute story. And we had a great time doing all the things. So now let's get into back pain, shall we? Let's talk about the back and the spine. Obviously, look, this is like, there's so much that can happen in the back. And this is by no means like a comprehensive breakdown. And as always in these body dialogue conversations, I'm just throwing out a few suggestions, observations, things that as I have worked on people and dealt with in my own body, where you scan, you listen, you talk to the symptoms, you talk to the discomfort, and get some impressions. Like these are just some of the things that have come up for me and for other people over the years. So, you know, you might use this as a starting point of analysis. You could just say, hey, you know, the podcast, he says that this was, you know, the back is about this. Like, does that seem true to me? Is there any emotional connection or any kind of frequency vibe that's happening as you scan your own body? And then, you know, your body might say, no, not at all. Like that podcast is full of shit. It's actually, you know, this is what's going on, in which case, awesome. Like, that's great. The whole point is just to use these as tools, like to tune in, to, perhaps follow the thread of a question, but ultimately, like, I don't care about the suggestion. I don't care about the questions that I'm asking here. What I care about is, like, are you listening to your body? Are you taking the time to check in and observe and to sit with some of the discomfort rather than simply just racing to try to get it to go away? And even in the process of, like, answering these questions, if you are, diving into whatever the symptoms are, if you listen to this, I imagine it's because either you love the podcast or someone sent this to you because you're dealing with back pain. If you're here simply to just, like, find the answer to your pain and then expect the pain to just disappear, right? Even that approach can create some more tension and discomfort. And as opposed to approaching your body with love, with compassion, with curiosity to say, well, what's going on here? What might my body be communicating with me? Rather than, let me solve this as another puzzle, as another question to be solved, and then I can get back to my life. Where most people, getting back to their life means getting back to a state of unconsciousness, a state of chasing comfort, a state of not paying attention. And I believe that our symptoms have arisen because we want our soul is asking us for us to pay more attention. And there's nothing like physical pain and discomfort to get us to stop or slow down or to, shift our priorities to say, okay, there's something here that needs to be paid attention to. It doesn't mean that if you can't figure it out, that you're broken, that you failed, like, all those other suggestions are just nonsense. This is simply an opportunity, and these conversations, these dialogues are meant to support you in the process of going in and listening to your body, asking what might else be going on here, rather than simply what I would consider a failure of Western medicine, which is just to view you as a technical and mechanical machine that, just has parts that can be replaced with very little regard to the emotional, spiritual, mental context in which we exist as human beings. So let's expand our exploration of pain and of discomfort. And we can look at some of these old modalities, some of these older body systems. I'll be referencing my area of expertise in Chinese medicine and, some of the other just observations of working on people, to understand some of the predominant energies that tend to flow in that part of the body. So, having said all of that, let's get into taking a look at the spine. So there's basically going to be, I'm going to break it down into kind of 3, maybe 4 areas. And again, like, there's acupuncture points all over the body. So, in a very point-specific location, these energetics can be different, but I wanted to make it simple and easier to kind of get a handle on, especially for someone who isn't like a body worker or expert. So we're going to just break the back down into a few different categories. So if the issue is like in the upper thoracic, so looking at like T1 or T2, I'm going to refer you back to the episode that I had on neck pain, because oftentimes that T1, T2 area, in my experience, is so often connected to the larger issues around neck pain. So go back in a few weeks and find that episode on neck pain and check that one out. Now, from about T3, the third thoracic, down to about T8, the energetics here tend to be a lot about betrayal and getting stabbed in the back. So when we're looking at the back as a whole, this is going to be like kind of what we would say the most yang part of the body. And so yang is going to be expansive, arousing, creation, the sun, typically more masculine, vigorous, full of vitality, whereas yin is going to be like the earth and grounded, like the kind of curled up, small, condensed, concentrated. And yang is going to be the opposite of that. And so the meridians that flow on the back are all yang meridians. There's like 2 main ones. One of them actually enters the brain. It's one of the first meridians that is formed for the fetus, that's formed in the developing body. And so as we're working on the back, typically that energy can shift like quickly because there is that yang transformative energy there. And so in general, we can look at like the entire back And one of the questions that would be posed there is something like, do you have doubt about your ability to transform? What is your relationship to transforming or even achieving? Because yang energy is very much the energy that we recruit, that we utilize to achieve things, to create things, to put things out into the world. So, like, especially if it's like, if you're having discomfort, like kind of all up and down the back, then, I start immediately thinking about like, okay, what is this person's ability to transform things, or to transform? Are they feeling stuck? Do they feel like shifting from one state to another is difficult? Do they have a hard time transitioning? Stuff like this. Now, when we look more closely into these different segments, we can get even more specific. So typically T3 to T8 is going to be about betrayal, being stabbed in the back. So, this opens up a whole other can of worms about betrayal and like, what do we think about betrayal? Because when you've been betrayed, if you're listening to this and you're in the throes of this, it sucks, right? It's a really intense feeling. It's not fun, and it just really sucks. But when we can get some distance from it, or we start to break it down, my perspective here is that betrayal really is like one of the grandest delusions or illusions of them all. Because you can start looking at like, what kind of agreement did you have? You created an agreement, spoken or very often unspoken agreement with this other person. And, the thing about betrayal is that we start to believe that somebody did something to us. And this is where it can start to get really slippery, because they didn't, oftentimes in betrayal, they didn't necessarily do anything to you. They made their own decisions. They just did what they did, and you did what you did. And so we can start to, if we look at it that way, right? And the illusion of betrayal is that we want to start taking things personally. We want to believe that it was a personal attack. That part of us that's really suffering and hurting wants to believe that this person came out and intentionally did this stuff to us. And, maybe that was part of it, but we were always complicit. We made decisions along the way to continue to engage and interact with this person, or, whatever. And for me, with this stuff, one of the things I start looking at, especially when someone's really locked into this betrayal story, is, did you really have no idea that this person might do this? Deep down, were you listening to your intuition along the entire way? Were there certain red flags or yellow flags, but it's definitely the red flags, that you ignored? And did we really not see it coming? Now, this isn't to like victim blame or shame or whatever. This is about calling attention again to, are we listening to what our body is trying to tell us? And oftentimes what happens is that we want so desperately to believe in this person, in this opportunity, in this kind of like illusion of what life might be like with this person, whether it's a business deal, a business partnership, or a romantic relationship, whatever, even just a friendship. We wanted to believe so desperately in what might happen, what might unfold, that oftentimes we ignored some of our intuition. We ignore those red flags. And so, the point here is that, in my experience, in order to heal, in order to transform these issues around betrayal, it's not even so much about like forgiving the other person as it is coming into integrity with ourselves. Coming back into that like all-knowing wisdom of the heart. It's not necessarily even about getting right with the other person, because your feelings of betrayal are beyond that person's actions. What they did in a moment might really hurt, but what's continuing to hurt and cause the discomfort is the story and the attachment and the frustration of not being able to achieve, this imagined future that you had, had bought into. And so it's possible that all of this, that this idea of betrayal and the breakdown of the partnership or the agreements, spoken or unspoken, maybe they happened to like jolt you into your awareness, to jolt you back into paying attention to your body, to bring you back into alignment with yourself, into the wisdom of the heart, to check into your intuition, and to finally say, hey, like, we are stronger than this. We have all of this. Like, we've been trying to talk to you. We've been trying to get you to listen. And you keep ignoring these red flags. You keep ignoring, these little nudges that you might be getting. And ultimately, after all the years that I've done working on clients, acupuncture patients, energy medicine patients, and certainly the coaching program, the biggest betrayal that happens and the one that hurts the most is when we betray ourselves. When we turn our back on ourselves, on our gut instinct, on our wisdom, when we surrender our power to other people, thinking that other people are going to help us to create the life that we want. That kind of betrayal, giving up your own ability to create, is devastating. And that's the relationship that has to be healed first. That is the ultimately the betrayal that needs to be reconciled here. It isn't so much about, someone that stood you up or ghosted you or gaslit you or whatever. It's about you getting right with your own ability to create and your own ability to stand tall no matter what. Taking back the power to create the future that you want. That future that is in alignment with your destiny, your purpose, your heart space. And so the betrayal there is, where, at what point along the way did you ignore or purposely shut down your light? Where did you shut down your power, your ability to create? Thinking that perhaps if you dimmed your light, this person would stay, this person would do what they said they were going to do. Where was you playing small, thinking that that might get you the outcome that you wanted? But it was in that choice to play small, to not be fully who you are, thinking that that might change the relationship in a way that bettered you. That's the moment where you betrayed yourself. That's the moment where, thank God your body is screaming at you to pay attention, to wake up, to say, hey, no more. No more dimming your light, thinking that if you shine a little less, that is going to attract, these amazing people that are going to help to lift you up higher. No. You shine bright. You stay you with whatever that looks like. And, the right people will come along. But it's about getting right with yourself again. And that T3 to T8 area where we feel stabbed in the back, it's not about what anybody else ever did to you. This is about where you may have ignored or left or betrayed yourself. I mean, you can never really betray yourself, but you get what I mean. Where you decided that on some level, not being all of who you are, or maybe you even grew up with that story that you're too much, you're too difficult. Tone down, tone yourself down. Don't be like you are. I'm laughing because I've been told that many times, like going into dinner parties. Can you just not be you tonight? Can you just I know what they're talking about. It's because I can be a jerk. I like to get into it. So I ask a lot of questions and poke and prod. And, I like to, small talk is not my thing. So I'll like to just okay, let's see what's happening here. And, sometimes I'm not reading the room necessarily correct. And so when people have told me that, it's like, I know what they're talking about. And I understand. And also, I usually just end up being me anyway. So some essential oils that I love for this stuff, like Deep Blue and Copaiba, are standards for pain management. They're so effective. The doTERRA's got the new rub, which has Deep Blue and Copaiba mixed in together, which is great. And that way you don't get on your hands too, which can make it better for you if you go to the bathroom after you apply your essential oils. If you know, you know. For betrayal, for those feelings of betrayal, geranium is great. Turmeric is excellent. Turmeric essential oil tends to smell horrible, but their doTERRA's turmeric pills I absolutely love because it combines the rhizome with the essential oil. And if there's bitterness around here, right? So if you're experiencing a lot of bitterness as you're dialing in here, the what I just said about people in your relationship to their betrayal, I could do a whole other podcast on that. If that has rubbed you the wrong way and you're like, that's bullshit, like this person really did do this to me, they did it intentionally, like if you're harboring a lot of bitterness there, thyme essential oil is great. Thyme is very purifying and can help to process some of those attachments that are lingering there, that list of resentments. And neroli is really nurturing, lovely, the really nice, like citrusy floral, activating that heart area. Very, very nice. And if grief is the emotion that's happening for you as you are processing some of this, and oftentimes just getting into like asking ourselves that question of like, when did I first betray myself? When did I first betray my instincts? When I first dialed into that question for myself, I felt a tremendous amount of grief and sadness. I started focusing on like time that was lost and opportunities that were missed and all these other suggestions that aren't necessarily so helpful. But if grief is what comes up for you, the essential oil Breathe is tremendous to help nurture the lungs there. And Console is a beautiful doTERRA blend that can also help to process some of that grief. All right. Beautiful. Okay, so moving on. Looking at the next segment for the back, T9 to T12. This oftentimes is going to be like that fight or flight energy, but mostly it's going to be fighting. These are like your adrenals. And so this whole area is typically like where we are putting a lot of energy, where we're perceiving threats, perceiving dangers, and that energy to be like, I've got to fight, I've got to keep going, like pushing. All of that is like really, really intense. So even something like lavender can be great to help calm things down. Sandalwood can also be really nurturing here. And that T9 to T12 area is an opportunity to be like, okay, how can I perceive this? How can I perceive these dangers differently? Because, is there a way to ease into this? Can I create the life that I want without there being so much fighting involved? Without there being so much stress involved? Now, this T9 to T12 area, it's not a huge area. Like most people don't have a lot of pain there. It can certainly happen. Sometimes like, even like the upper kind of QL can be involved. But this is an area that typically doesn't have as much the pain in my experience as the like that upper thoracic area, and then certainly this next section of the lower lumbar. And so the lumbar area is where most people are going to experience their back pain, their low back pain. And this is going to be, L1 to L5, even into S1. And this is going to be like the foundation of your spine, the foundation of your back. Typically, what we're going to see here is like fear. So you can get some of that adrenal energy here for sure, like that fight or flight. But this is going to be much more like of the flight area and that fear, even just total paralysis. And what we'll see here oftentimes are feelings of inadequacy. You can see major financial issues here, like do people owe you money? Are you having financial worries? Because that energy around finances is often so intimately tied to our feelings of being grounded, of being stable, of being secure, and that lumbar spine that's our foundation. So if energetically we're concerned about money, then that's going to oftentimes create that destabilization inside of us, and it's oftentimes expressed through that lumbar pain. I know for me, I had sciatic pain terrible once. It was so bad. It was like 5 days. I couldn't even I laid on the floor for like 2 or 3 days. I needed help going to the bathroom, like being able to get up. if I could find a way to lay down that like would alleviate the pain for 30 seconds, it was like such a welcome reprieve. I was then able to move to like a massage table, and I remember just like laying there at night, being up pretty much all night. And it was the only time in my life that I've really been like, I would not even suicidal, but where I could actively like entertain the thought. It was the first time that I had the thought of like, oh, this is why people kill themselves. Like, if this is the kind of pain that happens all the time, like, this is no wonder people kill themselves, because this is horrible. And I had that, all of that pain for me happened. My son was, I don't know, like a year and a half maybe, and his mom had been up in New York and doing auditions and stuff, and she came back and she was supposed to, with him, and they were supposed to be there. They were supposed to be in town for a while, and she comes back and she tells me that she's got to go back to New York in like 2 weeks or something. And I remember just feeling like totally overwhelmed. Like, financially, how is that going to work? Do I need to move to New York now? Um, what's this going to mean for my relationship to my son? Like, all of this like fear came up, and I didn't know it was like fear at first, but it was, I mean, I did, but I didn't, I was like, it was just like so much, I couldn't even really process it. And so, within a couple of days, I had this like horrible pain. Actually, the pain started in my foot. It started in my big toe, but I knew that it was like, oh, that's like the sciatic nerve that is completely being like impinged on right now. And then it started going up my leg, and then it, eventually came to the back, and the whole kind of that whole kinetic chain was just on fire. It was like, it was wicked, man. That was dark. And I was, you guys have heard my story about having the inflammatory bowel disease and being really sick for a long time. And none of that was ever as dark and scary and painful and as intense as having the sciatic pain. And I had great people that were like, working on me, and physical therapists that were taking care of me. And ultimately, like, as I was able to finally start in this healing process, I was able to start asking myself some of these harder questions of like, okay, well, what's really going on here? At the time, I was in so much discomfort, I didn't even have the bandwidth for it. I was just trying to survive. But then it was like, over time, I could look back on that and say, oh my God, of course I was terrified. I didn't even, I was no longer kind of safe in my Miami life. This New York stuff, I had no idea what might happen there. And of course, like, my relationship with my son and with his mom, and like that marriage and all of that was just like everything came to a head there. And man, it was intense. And so that lower lumbar stuff we're going to typically see is fear, especially when there's a ton of fear. And then what's really messed up is that it's like, it's bad enough to be in pain. It's bad enough to like have that fear. It's challenging enough. I shouldn't say bad. It's challenging enough. And then now there's like a whole other level of resistance and challenge, where it's like, okay, now there's like, am I ever going to heal? Am I ever going to be able to move again? Am I ever going to be able to play sports? Like, for me, I was like, am I ever going to be able to bend down and play with my kid on the floor? Am I going to be able to get up if I get down? Am I going to be able to throw them in the air again? Am I ever going to be able to, throw baseballs or play golf or whatever? Like, all of this other fear would come in because of the pain. And then it's like that could sort of take over the bandwidth that you wouldn't even be able to address, like that, the underlying fear that triggered this thing in the beginning. And so, to remember here that like fear is the anticipation of something that may never happen. And to remind ourselves, like, okay, I don't know what's going to happen in the future. I never know. We don't know. Getting back to this betrayal of like, believing an idea of something that might happen in the future, but we have no idea. And so oftentimes, like, that fear, especially the fear that manifests in the low back, is like we start clinging to like some kind of life, or like an illusion, or like we thought we had something. We thought we were like possessing of a particular life or an income or a job or a relationship or whatever. And then we're afraid that it may leave, that it may change somehow. And if we can remind ourselves that like every moment is grace, everything can change in an instant. that we never actually possess anything. We certainly don't possess anybody. We don't possess, we don't have any claim on what the future is going to look like. And so a lot of it is breaking through some of these illusions and these stories that we tell ourselves to make ourselves more comfortable, because if it was really like every moment is unpredictable, that can be overwhelming. But to also remember every moment is unpredictable and we don't know what is going to happen. And all we can do is send out our love, our prayer, our energies in this moment and the next moment and the next moment, and, kind of own our ability to create that. But when we live in fear, there's like the fear of what might happen, but then also the fear of like all of these kind of illusions and these imagined futures that also might go away. And so, it's like all of that energy trying to maintain this imagined life, trying to maintain what we have here, trying to maintain this like present comfort that we were experiencing before. And so the misguided approach to healing is to say, okay, I have to heal to be able to get back to this like imagined life or this illusion of safety, instead of saying, okay, again, who am I? What can I create here? Affirming my ability to transform, to be, powerful, to be able to create one moment after the next. But if we get caught up in the fear and the fear of maintaining of what might happen if these illusions are changed, or are they gone, or are they transformed, then, oftentimes we can just start manifesting this back pain, because if we've been so focused on building a life based on an illusion, on an imagined future, based on, dimming kind of who you are, or trying to please everybody around us at the expense of our relationship with ourselves, then that's a problem. Then there's going to be some of that disconnect. And so it can manifest here as back pain, because the back pain is trying to get you to pay attention again. And so here in the low back, some essential oils that I love. Cinnamon is tremendous. Copaiba, of course, is great. That resin is going to really help to, it's got deep roots, the copaiba tree. And so help to really anchor you in and feel grounded and secure again. And then, of course, black spruce. Black spruce is one of my favorite essential oils for the low back. It's known as the oil of stability. Great to help support the adrenals and to bring this kind of like comforting and secure feeling, even in times of uncertainty. And now the last bit that we'll talk about for the spine is the sacrum. And the sacrum for me is really connected to like that second chakra, which has all this energy about creation. And so much more simply, this is about like, are you able to create? Are you bringing your passions out into the world? Are you kind of living in alignment with your destiny? Are you staying true to who you are, or are you, trying again to fit in to be somebody else? This has a lot to do with our sexual energy. Are you creating that life? Are you staying true to yourself, or are you not? Like, are you shutting yourself down? Are you, actually being impotent? Are you actually just saying in your life, like, no, it's not for you. You're not good enough to be able to do this. You don't deserve to, sing your song or to put yourself out there. And so the sacrum, that kind of sacral stuff, it tends to all be around this idea of creation, So you might ask yourself, like, what can I create? What am I meant to create? What is it that I want to bring into the world? Maybe it's just something simple. It's like you want to create a good mood everywhere you go. You want to create, a healthy, you want to create like a good family vibes, or, you want to create a dynamic relationship, or maybe you're someone who wants to like create orphanages and, schools, or like maybe you have these huge dreams and whatever. And that's awesome too. It doesn't have to be anything super like insane and profound. It can simply be, I want to just create a good energy everywhere I go. I want to, participate in the creation of, people feeling connected and whole and together, right? All that stuff is beautiful. And so if we're not creating in a good way, oftentimes the sacrum might experience discomfort trying to get us to pay attention to that. So some oils that I love here for sacral discomfort is passion. The doTERRA blend passion is great. Whisper is also awesome. And wintergreen, I really love. Wintergreen is this oil of surrender. And, there is a certain element sometimes of like, we have to surrender. We have to surrender like the idea of how we think we should be, or what, society or the people around us have told us we should be. In order to really create authentically and powerfully, we have to surrender some of those ideas to tap into like who we really are. And I love sandalwood for all of these issues in the spine. And it's the oil of sacred devotion. And I do believe that there's an element of humility and reverence that we've talked about before in order to really create in alignment with ourselves and our higher power. There is this element of devotion to be, kind of devoted to you and your soul and this life as an opportunity to do something unique, to be uniquely you, to bring your unique gifts out into the world, in alignment with this whole energy of creation and of the Creator. And so sandalwood is a tremendous oil to help remind us of that and to bring us back into alignment with ourselves and that higher force. So there you have it. Again, this is not medical advice. It's just things to explore. All the disclaimers, and we live in this litigious society. All right, so I love to hear from you guys. Thank you so much for sharing the episodes, sharing the podcast. Hit me up, pleasurepointspodcast@gmail.com. Let me know what you're thinking about. If any of this stuff is resonating with you, hit me up on Instagram @JamesERoar. And if you don't have essential oils and you're like, what is he talking about? Hit us up at those same places, and we can get you started with the essential oil collection that's going to help get you targeted solutions and targeted support for your body. I'll get on the phone with you, or, my wife, Jen, will get on the phone, and we can give you, find out what's happening and see what we can do to help support you. So thank you guys, as always, for being here, and we'll catch you next time.